His name is Kang. He's a smuggler and killer. Already murdered 2 of my officers." Jin pointed to a screen showing a tall, thin alien with red scales and sharp teeth. "He's hiding somewhere on levels 3 through 5. My teams can't find him." "You want me to find him?" Hannah said. It wasn't a question. "Yes. The pay is good." Jin pushed a data pad toward her. "All the information we have is there. Alive would be better, but dead is acceptable." The implant at the base of Hannah's skull pulsed once, forcing her to accept. Her hand reached for the data pad before she even decided to take it. "I'll find him," she said. Jin nodded, relief clear on his face. "Thank you. And Hannah, be careful. He's not like other criminals you've caught. This one enjoys the kill." Hannah left without responding. As she walked toward the lower levels, she studied the information about her target. Kang was larger and stronger than most species on the station. He had killed 18 people across 3 different star systems. She took the transport tube down to level 3. The lower levels were darker, dirtier, and more dangerous than the upper parts of the station. Even here, people moved away when they saw her. "It's the Mindbreaker," someone whispered. "Don't look at her eyes," another warned. Hannah felt the familiar emptiness inside her. The fear in their faces should have made her sad, but the implant blocked those feelings. Instead, she felt only the cold focus of the hunt. A group of maintenance workers hurried past her. One bumped her shoulder by accident. He turned, saw who he had touched, and his face went pale. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean," he started, backing away. Hannah stared at him. Something didn't seem right. His uniform was too clean for someone working in the lower levels. His hand showed no signs of work. "Your identification," she said. The man turned and ran. Hannah didn't chase him. She didn't need to. With a small gesture of her hand, she reached out with her mind and grabbed him. He froze in mid-step, his body suddenly unable to move. Slowly, she walked toward him. The man struggled against her invisible hold, but couldn't break free. "Kang," she said softly, looking at his face more carefully. The red scales were barely visible under the makeup he had used to disguise himself. "Let me go, you little freak," he hissed, showing sharp teeth. "No," Hannah said simply. With another small movement of her hand, she tightened her mental grip. Kang gasped in pain. The implant at the base of her skull pulsed again, pushing her to squeeze harder. She felt Kang's ribs begin to crack under the pressure of her telekinetic grip. A small part of her mind that was still her own fought against the command. She didn't want to kill. She never had. But the implant's control was strong. Just as Kang's eyes began to bulge, a station-wide alarm sounded. The lights flickered and went out completely for 3 seconds. When they came back on, Hannah's concentration had broken. Kang dropped to the floor, gasping for air. Before she could grab him again, he pulled something from his pocket and threw it at her feet. Smoke filled the corridor. By the time it cleared, Kang was gone. Hannah stood alone in the empty hallway. The implant punished her failure with a sharp pain that made her wince. She would find Kang again. She had to. The people controlling her through the implant wouldn't accept failure. As she tracked her prey deeper into the station's lower levels, she didn't know that everything would soon change. In 2 days, the first human diplomatic team would arrive on Nexus Station, and among them would be Captain Ta, the man who would see past her fearsome reputation and change her life forever. The human ship docked at Nexus Station with little fanfare. 5 humans stepped out, the first of their kind to visit this part of space. They looked almost boring compared to the other aliens on the station. No extra limbs, no scales, no glowing skin, just 2 arms, 2 legs, and soft skin in various shades of brown. Captain Tai led the group. He was tall for a human but still shorter than many other species. His eyes missed nothing as they moved through the arrival area. 20 years in Earth's special forces had taught him to notice details others missed. "Welcome to Nexus Station," said a blue-skinned official named Muck. "We've prepared quarters for your diplomatic team. The station administrator will meet with you tomorrow." Ta nodded. "Thank you. My team would like to rest, but I'd like to see more of the station first." Muck looked surprised. "Alone? The lower levels can be unpredictable." "I've handled unpredictable before," Ta said with a small smile. After settling his team in their quarters, Ta changed into plain clothes and headed to the busy marketplace. Humans were new enough that few recognized what he was. He blended in, just another visitor among dozens of species. He watched everything, how different aliens interacted, who had power, who was afraid. That was when he first noticed something strange. The crowd suddenly parted, people stepping aside without being asked. A small alien with violet skin walked through the open space. She barely reached Ta's chest, with delicate features and glowing patterns that shifted across her skin. Everyone avoided looking at her directly. Ta didn't look away. He saw the stiffness in her movements, the emptiness in her eyes. There was something mechanical about how she moved, like a puppet with invisible strings. "Don't stare at her," a vendor whispered to him. "That's Hana. She's dangerous." "What makes her dangerous?" Ta asked quietly. "She's a mind-bender. Can move things, hurt people, just by thinking about it. Broke a man's back last month without touching him." Ta watched Hana disappear down a corridor. Something about her bothered him. Not fear, something else. She reminded him of prisoners he'd seen during war, the ones with control implants. The military had outlawed such technology on Earth centuries ago, but he recognized the signs. For the next 2 days, Tai attended meetings with his team, but spent every free moment observing the station. He learned about Hana from whispered conversations and station records he shouldn't have been able to access. A bounty hunter with a perfect record. Everyone feared her. No one knew where she came from. On the 3rd day, Ta was eating in a small food shop when alarms blared. A voice announced, "Security alert. Level 4, Section B. All civilians clear the area." Instead of leaving, Ta moved closer. He rounded a corner just in time to see Hana facing a large alien with sharp claws. 3 security officers lay unconscious nearby. "You can't run anymore, Kang," Hana said, her voice flat and emotionless. The alien named Kang snarled, "I'll add your skull to my collection, little girl." He lunged at her, but never reached her. Hana raised one small hand, and Kang froze in midair. His body lifted off the ground, suspended by nothing visible. Tai watched carefully. There it was again, that slight delay between decision and action. The tiny flinch before she used her power. Classic signs of a control implant. Kang struggled against the invisible force, his claws slashing at air. "What are you?" he gasped. Hana didn't answer. She closed her hand slowly, and Kang began to choke. His eyes bulged. His feet kicked helplessly. Tai saw something else now, pain in Hana's eyes. Not from Kang's struggles, but from something else. Something was forcing her to hurt Kang, and she was fighting it. As Kang's struggles weakened, Tai made a decision. He pulled a small device from his pocket, a neural disruptor, standard equipment for human diplomats visiting unknown territories. It wouldn't harm her, just temporarily block electronic signals to the brain. He needed a distraction. The station's power system would work. Human hackers were among the best in known space, and Ta had learned the station's systems already. He activated his portable terminal and triggered a bypass sequence. The lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. In the darkness, Ta moved quickly. His eyes adjusted faster than most species, another small human advantage. He slipped behind Hana just as the emergency lights came on. The neural disruptor touched the back of her neck, right where he suspected the implant was hidden. Hana stiffened as the device activated. Kang dropped to the floor, gasping for air. The large alien looked up, saw his chance, and ran. Hana turned slowly, her movements suddenly her own again. Confusion replaced the emptiness in her eyes. She reached for her power, but the disruptor blocked the implant's signals. "What did you do to me?" she asked, her voice different now, younger, frightened. "Blocked your implant," Ta said calmly, "temporarily." Her hand moved to the back of her neck, feeling the small bump there for what seemed like the first time. "Implant. Someone's been controlling you," Tai explained. "For how long?" "I don't." She stopped, memories flooding back. 3 years, since they took me from my home. Security officers rounded the corner, weapons ready. They stopped when they saw Hannah standing there. "The fugitive escaped that way," Ta said, pointing in the opposite direction from where Kang had actually gone. The officers hesitated, looking at Hannah with fear. "She's with me," Tai added. "Diplomatic business." The officers didn't argue with a diplomat. They hurried away, following the false trail. Hannah looked at Ta with new eyes. "Who are you?" "Captain Ta, Earth Diplomatic Court." He pocketed the disruptor. "And I think you need help." "Why would you help me?" "Everyone fears me." "I see a prisoner, not a monster," Ta said simply. The disruptor's effect would wear off soon. The implant would take control again, and she might attack him. He needed to get her somewhere safe. "We don't have much time," he said. "Do you want to be free?" For the first time in years, real emotion showed on Hannah's face. Hope. "Yes." "Then come with me," Ta said, offering his hand. "Humans are good at impossible things." Hannah hesitated, then took his hand. Together, they slipped away through the station's service tunnels, racing against time before her controllers realized what had happened. For the first time since she'd been taken, Hannah felt something new. Possibility. This strange alien from a world she'd never heard of had seen what no one else had, that she was a captive, not a killer. And somehow, that changed everything. Hannah woke up slowly. Her head felt strangely light, as if something heavy had been lifted from her mind. She lay on a small bed in a room she didn't recognize. The walls were plain gray metal. A single light glowed softly above her. She sat up carefully, touching the back of her neck. The small bump that had been there for 3 years was gone. In its place was a smooth patch of healing skin. "You're awake," said a voice. Hannah turned quickly. The human called Ta sat in a chair across the room. He held a small metal device in his hand, her implant, now removed. "What did you do to me?" Hannah asked. Her own voice sounded strange to her ears, more alive, more real than it had in years. "I removed this," Ta said, holding up the implant. "It was controlling you, forcing you to hunt, to hurt people." Hannah stared at the tiny device. It looked so small to have caused so much pain. "Where are we?" "My private quarters on the human diplomatic vessel. It's the safest place on the station right now." Memories began to flood back, no longer blocked by the implant. Hannah remembered her home world, her family, the day the raiders came. She remembered being taken, the operation to put the implant in, the training to use her powers for violence. "Yoon," she whispered, the name coming back to her. "He's the one who took me, who controlled me." "Tell me about him," Ta said. "He runs the largest criminal group in this sector. He collects people with special abilities. Telepaths, telekinetics like me, anyone who can be useful. The implants make us obey." Hannah looked at her small hands. "He made me hurt so many people." "That wasn't you," Ta said firmly. "It was the implant." Hannah looked up at him. "Why did you help me?" "No one else even tried in 3 years." Tai was quiet for a moment. "Where I come from, we have a saying. The measure of a society is how it treats its most vulnerable. I saw someone being used against their will. I couldn't walk away from that." "You should have. Yoon will come for me. For you too, now." "Let him try," Ta said simply. As if his words had summoned trouble, an alarm blared from his portable terminal. "Security breach. Someone's trying to override the airlock." Ta moved quickly to a wall panel and pressed his hand against it. A hidden compartment opened, revealing several weapons. He took a small pistol and offered another to Hana. She shook her head. I don't need that. She flexed her fingers. For the first time in years, her power felt like her own again. The door to the quarters burst open. 3 large aliens rushed in, weapons raised. Hana recognized them immediately. Yoon's personal guards. Take them both, the leader growled. Yoon wants the girl back, and the human dead. Todd fired his weapon, hitting the first guard in the shoulder. The alien stumbled but didn't fall. The second guard fired back, missing Ta by inches. Hana raised her hand. Her power flowed naturally now, not forced by the implant. She lifted the second guard off his feet and threw him against the wall. It felt different using her abilities by choice. Cleaner, more controlled. The third guard rushed at Ta with a knife. Humans looked weak compared to many species, and the guard clearly expected an easy kill. He was wrong. Ta moved with surprising speed, sidestepping the attack and striking the guard's arm at a precise point. The knife clattered to the floor as the guard's arm went limp. Neural pressure points, Ta explained, seeing Hana's surprised look. All species have them. The first guard was getting up again. Hana focused her power, pinning him against the floor. How did they find us so quickly? They must have been tracking the implant, Ta said, quickly binding the third guard with cord from his equipment belt. Which means they know it's been removed. We need to move, Hana said. More will come. Ta nodded. There's a maintenance tunnel that connects to the lower levels. We can use it to hide until I contact my team. They left the quarters through a small access panel in the wall. The tunnel beyond was narrow and dark, lit only by Ta's small light. They crawled quickly, putting distance between themselves and Yoon's guards. Your fighting style is strange, Hana said as they moved. I've never seen anyone fight like that. Humans look weak to most species, Tae replied. We've learned to use that. People underestimate us. I did too, Hana admitted. They reached a junction in the tunnels. Ta checked his small map screen. Left here, it leads to the cargo levels. We can hide there while I make a plan. As they turned the corner, Hana suddenly stopped. Wait, I sensed something ahead. Ta switched off his light immediately. In the darkness, they heard soft footsteps approaching. More of Yoon's people, Ta whispered. No, different. Hana closed her eyes, extending her senses. Station security. 6 of them. Looking for us. Yes, they've been told we attacked the diplomatic vessel. That we're dangerous fugitives. Ta considered their options. We can't go back. And we can't fight station security. That would cause a diplomatic incident. I could push them back with my power, Hana suggested. No, that would only confirm their story about us being dangerous. Ta looked around in the darkness. There. He pointed to a small vent in the ceiling. Cooling system access. It's smaller, but it will take us around them. The vent was barely big enough for Hana. For Tai, it was an extremely tight fit. They squeezed through just as the security team reached the junction below. You could have escaped on your own, Hana whispered as they crawled through the tight space. Why bring me along? I'm just putting you in more danger. Tai was quiet for a moment. Because you deserve freedom. And because I think we need each other right now. I don't understand humans, Hana said. Most species don't, Tai replied with a small smile. We're unpredictable. They emerged in a large cargo hold filled with shipping containers. Tai checked his terminal again. My team needs to know what's happening. I can trust them. Hana nodded slowly. For the first time in years, she was making her own choices. It felt strange and wonderful at the same time. What's your plan? She asked. First, we find proof of what Yoon has been doing. Then we shut him down and free the others like you. Ta looked at her seriously. But I need to know if you're with me. This won't be easy. Hana thought about all the others still controlled by implants, still forced to hurt and kill. She thought about 3 years of being a prisoner in her own body. I'm with you, she said firmly. Yoon needs to be stopped. Ta nodded. Then we have work to do. And so began the unlikely alliance between a small alien with extraordinary powers and a human far from home. Neither knew exactly what would come next, but for the first time in years, Hannah felt something like hope. The cargo bay provided good hiding for 2 days. Tai and Hannah slept in shifts, always watching for Yoon's people or station security. Tai contacted his team through a secure channel. They agreed to help but needed to be careful not to create a bigger problem between Earth and the station. "We need information," Ta said as they shared a small meal of emergency rations. "We need to know where Yoon keeps the other people with implants." Hannah nodded. "He has a main base somewhere on the station. I was never allowed to see it, but I heard guards talking. It's on the lower levels. Can you remember anything else? Any details?" Hannah closed her eyes, thinking hard. "Once, when they took me for maintenance on the implant, I remember the smell of recycled water. Must be near the water systems." Tai checked his station map. "Lower levels, near water recycling. That narrows it down." He pointed to several areas. "These are possibilities. How will we check them all? Security is looking for us everywhere." Ta smiled. "We won't check them. We'll get someone else to tell us exactly where to go." That night, they moved through the shadows to a small bar in the lower levels. Ta had learned that one of Yoon's lieutenants, a greedy alien named Pak, spent every evening there. "He handles the money," Hannah explained. "He knows everything about Yoon's operation." They watched from a service corridor as Pak drank alone at a corner table. He was thin with pale green skin and 3 eyes that constantly moved, watching for trouble. "Now we wait," Ta whispered. 3 hours later, Pak finally left the bar. He walked unsteadily down the empty corridor, heading for the transport tube. "Ready?" Ta asked. Hannah nodded. As Pak passed their hiding spot, she stepped out and raised her hand. The green alien froze in mid-step. "Hello, Pak," she said quietly. "Remember me?" All 3 of Pak's eyes widened in fear. "Hannah, how are you?" "The implant is gone," she finished for him. "And now you're going to tell us everything about Yoon's operation." Ta stepped out behind her, "Or things will get very uncomfortable for you." Pak tried to reach for his communicator, but Hannah tightened her telekinetic grip. "Don't," she warned. 20 minutes later, they had what they needed. Pak had given them the location of Yoon's main base, the entrance codes, and the number of guards. Tai left him tied up in a storage closet where he would be found, eventually. "I still don't understand why you're helping me," Hannah said as they made their way to level 10, the deepest part of the station. "Your species is supposed to be primitive, new to space travel." "We are," Tai admitted. "But sometimes being new has advantages. We think differently." "You fight differently too," Hannah observed. "Most species rely on strength or technology. You use, what's the word? Strategy. Unpredictability," Tai corrected. "It's how humans survived on Earth. We were never the strongest or fastest, so we had to be the smartest." They reached a maintenance door that looked like 100 others on the station. Pak's code worked, and the door slid open to reveal a long corridor. "Be careful," Hannah whispered. "Yoon always has surprises." They moved silently through the corridor. It led to a large room filled with equipment and computers. No one was there. "This is it," Hannah said, looking at the machines. "This is where they control the implants." Tai examined the computers. "These are transmitting signals to at least 20 different locations on the station. 20 people like me," Hannah said quietly. "Forced to work for Yoon." Tai connected his small terminal to the main computer. "I can download the data, but it will take a few minutes." A noise from the corridor made them both turn. Footsteps approached, many of them. "They know we're here," Hannah said, readying her power. The door slid open. 10 armed guards rushed in, weapons pointed at them. Behind them walked a tall, elegant alien with 4 arms and smooth black skin. Two of his arms held small devices with blinking lights. Yoon, Hana whispered. My favorite little weapon, Yoon said, his voice surprisingly soft. And her new human friend. How interesting. Ta slowly raised his hands. This operation is illegal in 17 sectors. Yoon laughed. And who will stop me? You? Your primitive species is barely out of its home system. We're full of surprises, Tae replied calmly. Yoon pressed a button on one of his devices. I have 5 more like her, he said, nodding to Hana. Perhaps you'd like to meet them. A side door opened. 5 small aliens of different species walked in. Their eyes had the same empty look Hana's once had. Kill them both, Yoon ordered. The 5 aliens raised their hands in unison. Hana felt their combined power press against her. She pushed back with her own, creating a shield around herself and Ta. I can't hold them all, she gasped. They're too strong together. Ta looked around quickly, his eyes focused on a panel near the ceiling. The cooling system. Can you reach it with your power? Hana followed his gaze. Yes, but why? Trust me, Ta said. On my signal, hit it hard. Then be ready to run. The pressure from the 5 controlled aliens increased. Hana's shield began to crack. Yoon smiled, watching their struggle. Now, Ta shouted. Hana focused all her remaining power on the cooling panel. It burst open, releasing a cloud of super-cold gas that quickly filled the room. Alarms blared as the temperature dropped rapidly. The gas interferes with electronic signals, Tai explained quickly, including the implants. The 5 controlled aliens stopped their attack, suddenly confused as their implants temporarily failed. The guards' weapons wouldn't fire in the extreme cold. This way. Ta grabbed Hana's hand and pulled her toward a side exit. The cold gas had created chaos, with everyone struggling to see and breathe. They ran through narrow maintenance tunnels, the alarms still blaring behind them. Yoon's angry shouts echoed in the distance. That was either brilliant or crazy, Hana said when they finally stopped to catch their breath. Humans are often both, Tae replied with a smile. We got what we needed. He held up his terminal. Complete data on all the implants and their locations. Hana looked at him with new respect. You humans are dangerous. When we need to be, Tai agreed. Now we need help. My team and your knowledge of the station. We're going to free everyone and end Yoon's operation forever. For the first time since they'd met, Hana smiled. A real smile, full of hope. When do we start? Right now, Ta said, activating his communicator. The real hunt begins. As they rushed through the station toward Ta's team, Hana realized something had changed. She was no longer hunting because someone controlled her. She was hunting because she chose to. And with this strange human beside her, she believed they might actually succeed. Ta's team gathered in the small meeting room on the human ship. 4 humans in simple uniforms listened carefully as Tai explained their plan. Hana sat nervously beside him, still unused to being treated as a person rather than a weapon. The station needs to know what Yoon has been doing, Ta said, showing them the data he had stolen. 20 people like Hana, all controlled with implants, all forced to commit crimes. Chief Jin won't believe us without proof, said Mina, Ta's second in command. He's been taking money from Yoon for years. We don't need Jin, Tae replied. We need the station administrator. She doesn't know about Yoon's operation. Hana looked at the humans with wonder. Your species really thinks you can stop him. Yoon controls half the station. Mina smiled. Humans are good at impossible things. They spent hours planning. Tae's team had brought special equipment from Earth, neural disruptors that could temporarily block the implants and small devices that could shield communications from being tracked. Yoon will be ready for us now, Hana warned. He'll have all his weapons and all his controlled people protecting him. Good, Ta said. We want him to gather everyone in one place. It makes our job easier. When station lights dimmed for night cycle, they moved out. Hana led them through service tunnels that few knew about. Two of Taz's team went to the station administrator's office with the evidence. The rest headed for Yoon's main control center. They encountered the first guards outside the entrance to level 10. Ta moved quickly, using the fighting style that had surprised Hana before. He touched specific points on the guard's body, and the large alien collapsed without making a sound. Pressure points, he explained again to Hana. Every species has them. Beyond the guards, they found what they were looking for, a large room filled with control panels and screens. Yoon stood in the center, surrounded by his controlled telepaths. These poor aliens stood motionless, their eyes empty, waiting for commands. "I knew you would come back," Yoon said when he saw them. "Humans are so predictable, always trying to save everyone." "Surrender now," Ta said calmly. "Station security is already on the way." Yoon laughed. "You think I don't control station security?" He pressed a button on his control panel. "Kill them all." The telepaths raised their hands together. Hana felt their combined power gathering like a storm. She created a shield around the humans, but it would not hold for long. "Now, Mina," Ta shouted. Mina activated a small device on her belt. A high-pitched sound filled the room. Painful to hear. The controlled telepaths faltered, their concentration breaking as the sound interfered with their implants. Yoon shouted in anger and pulled out a weapon. He fired at Ta, but Hana deflected the shot with her power. The humans moved quickly, using the confusion to get closer. "You can't stop me," Yoon snarled. "I've built this operation for 20 years. It ends today," Ta said. Yoon pressed another button. Doors opened all around the room, and more guards rushed in. The humans were outnumbered 10-1. Hana looked at Ta, worried. "There are too many." "Trust me," he said quietly. In 3, 2, 1, the room's lights suddenly went out. Emergency lighting came on, bathing everything in red. A noob alarm sounded throughout the station. "What is this?" Yoon demanded. A voice came over the station's announcement system. "Attention all residents. This is Administrator Song. Station security has been compromised. All personnel will now report directly to me. We have evidence of illegal activity on level 10. All available officers report there immediately." Yoon's guards looked at each other, confused. Some of them lowered their weapons. "Don't listen," Yoon shouted. "I pay you more than she ever will." But it was too late. The administrator's voice had planted seeds of doubt. And now, real station security officers began to arrive. Ones who didn't take Yoon's money, called in by Taz's team members who had reached the administrator. In the confusion, Ta moved toward the main control panel. "Hana, cover me." Hana used her power to push guards away from Ta as he reached the controls. He worked quickly, fingers flying over the panels. "What are you doing?" Hana asked, still holding her shield against attacks. "Shutting down all the implants at once," Ta explained. "Your people will be free." Yoon saw what was happening and ran toward Ta, all four arms reaching for weapons. "I'll kill you myself." Hana didn't think. She simply acted. Her power grabbed Yoon and lifted him off the ground. She held him there, suspended in the air. "Not this time," she said quietly. Tai finished his work. A sound like a power surge filled the room, and then silence. The controlled telepaths blinked, looking around in confusion as their implants deactivated permanently. "It's over, Yoon," Ta said. Station security officers flooded the room, taking control of Yoon's guards. Administrator Song arrived, her face stern as she surveyed the operation Yoon had hidden from her for years. "Take him away," she ordered as officers handcuffed Yoon. "And get medical help for these poor people."